throughout the course of it, like I said, had I not had the kind of some of the experiences that I had in high school, probably could have been a lot worse, right? Because I learned to be resilient, just to keep fighting. I'm a believer in God. I know that God has a plan for me and had a plan for me through all of that, and He utilized it really as a tool for me to be able to, speak life into guys in this stage of my life. So I'm thankful for everything that I went through. You could call me a bust, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't a great football player in college by any means, but I'm okay with that, because what I got out of football was probably much more than just, playing the game, right? Like I got a lot more out of that led to life in general, and especially in business.
Welcome to this episode of the Business of Athletes podcast, where we cover the business of athletes from all angles. And on this episode, we got the pleasure of interviewing Jordan Luallen, one of my big dogs, the guy I trained with for my pro day, got me ready to go impress some scouts and try to get into the league. And Jordan is a former quarterback, former athlete at the University of Cincinnati, and now the owner of X3 Performance Training and Physical Therapy. So, Jordan, welcome.
Appreciate it, big dog. Thanks for having me.
And did I say the name right? It's X3 PPT.
Performance
and Physical Therapy. I said
That's right.
Physical Therapy and Performance. But either way, you are the owner and founder of X3. So, yeah, man, how you doing, bro?
Good, man. Blessed, busy down here, obviously just running the business and everything, but, can't complain. Family's good, kids are good, wife's good. So, business is growing, so life's good. Can't complain at all. How about you?
Man, I'm good. I'm glad to be talking to you today. So, let's jump right into it, man. So, you're a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. You go to, I think Georgia Tech first.
That's right. Yep.
Georgia Tech and then Cincinnati. Tell us about that. First, tell us about high school, where you from, just a little bit about yourself, and then let's talk about your college career.
Yeah, so from Greenwood, Indiana, just south of Indianapolis, and went to a high school called Center Grove. Super fortunate, it's a really unique place in Indiana. We had a coach that came from Florida, who's one of the most influential people in my life, still to this day. But he came from Florida and really kind of created a unique environment. You don't really think of Indiana as a football place, but you hear about the one stoplight towns in Alabama and Georgia and Florida and Texas and all that, those places where football's king, and it's tumbleweeds in the streets on Friday nights, and that's kind of what it was like in Greenwood. He built a really neat culture, and so I was really fortunate to grow up in that and see things done the right way and kind of in a different way. He pushed me from a really young age, and was very fortunate. He started 4 years on varsity, 5A team, and so got kind of thrown into the spotlight at a young age, and it was good for me. Like you said, I had some accolades and stuff, but I think the biggest thing that I learned there, which allowed me to be able to grow and kind of get to the position where I'm at now, is just resiliency. We were terrible my first couple of years, and like I said, they made football king in that city, and so I was, they were trying to run me out with a pitchfork when I was a young kid, and just like experiencing that as a 14, 15-year-old kid, walking your hallways and everybody telling you suck and stuff like that. It kind of taught me, just to block out the noise and be resilient. And so then, the rest of my high school career, junior and senior year, we had great seasons and stuff, won a state championship. And then that kind of bled into my college career, which was a lot of ups and downs. I went to Georgia Tech. Like you said, I had, again, some accolades, whatever. Things didn't really go well. Broke my foot my freshman year. Didn't really love the school, the environment there. This wasn't fitting for me. I didn't really fit in there from a personal level, and then from a football standpoint, fitting a square peg into a round hole is kind of what it was. And so I was very just uncomfortable there. And so I transferred to Cincinnati, which was more, from a cultural standpoint, kind of what I needed. And then football just kind of hit me right in between the eyes, man. And I think the the biggest thing was that, like I said, I kind of grown up with somebody caring for me as a coach, and I quickly learned that football's a business. When I got there, like I said, my high school coach and I still talk. Every couple of weeks to this day. 16, 15 years after the fact, and you get to college, and it's just very select few kids are lucky to have that. And I got tested, I got tried a lot. Everybody does, but in some really unique ways when I was there. Moved positions 7 times over the course of my career, and really got to a point where I just lost complete confidence in myself as a football player. Really thankful that my senior year, new staff came in, Tommy Tuberville, offensive coordinators, Eddie Grant and Darren Hinshaw. And they, and as little as they know it, probably changed the trajectory of my life. Gave me an opportunity, to play when I really didn't deserve it, and that kind of really helped me to get back on track in life because I was in a pretty dark place. You hear guys talk about the emotional side of things with ball, and losing, when you lose football or just what you're going through. And I lived that, at a really high level. And those guys kind of helped me set myself back on track. And then, but throughout the course of it, like I said, had I not had the kind of some of the experiences that I had in high school, probably could have been a lot worse, right? Because I learned to be resilient, just to keep fighting. I'm a believer in God. I know that God has a plan for me and had a plan for me through all of that, and He utilized it, really as a tool for me to be able to, speak life into guys in this stage of my life. So I'm thankful for everything I went through. You could call me a bust, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't a great football player in college by any means, but I'm okay with that, because what I got out of football was probably much more than just playing the game, right? Like I got a lot more out of that that led to
Yeah.
to life, life in general, and especially in business. So yeah, it's kind of in a brief nutshell, kind of what things were like leading up to walking into the real world.
Man, so there's two things you talked about there that I kind of want to go back to. So the first piece of the story was that you transferred from Georgia Tech to Cincinnati. So uh, looking back on that, I heard you say that you didn't feel like you fit. So you made the right decision to transfer, and it was based on like your experience there, just how you fit in. Do you have any advice for young athletes today? Because with the transfer portal, it's really easy to just hop in the portal and
Yeah.
then try to find a different home. But if you look at the numbers with that, a lot of guys are hopping into the portal and not finding a home. So like, do
Hmm.
you have any advice for guys when they're evaluating that opportunity to say, all right, I think I need to go into the portal. I think I need to find a new home to play football. Because for a lot of guys, I would assume that the decision is a really big one, but I don't know if they take the time to really figure out if that's a move that they should make.
For sure. And it was a conversation that I had with my dad, and my mom, my parents and support system, my high school football coach from the end of my freshman season. I didn't transfer until the fall of going into my second year. So I mean, it was a 9 month discussion that I had before I ever made that decision. And back then you had to sit out a year. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
you had to, like, a team had to really want you to be able to put you on scholarship and stuff like that, because they just wasted a scholarship for a year more or less, right? So it was a 9 month discussion that we had, and for me, like, it was really looking at myself, and this was probably the first time in my career because every college kid thinks they're going to go play in the league. Every college kid, you get into, especially playing at a big school, like that's just what it is. It was my first time, like, really looking at myself and saying, okay, like, maybe I'm not what I thought I was in high school. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm not a good football player, but maybe I'm not really what I thought I was. Like, this isn't the right situation for me. I'm not comfortable here socially, emotionally, whatever. And so that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I knew I could play, but I didn't think I was going to play there.
All right. So we talked about transferring. Let's talk about one more thing before we get into X3. You mentioned that you changed positions 7 times.
Hmm.
Let's go through that, man, because I went through some position changes in my career as well. Uh, but it wasn't 7 times. So let's talk about that. Let's detail that up, man, because that's really That's a real big resilience piece. So let's talk about that. Where'd you start? I mean, well, you started at quarterback. Where'd you move from there, and like what were those position changes like?
Yeah, so I was my sophomore year, my redshirt. So I guess my redshirt sophomore year, first year I was able to play at Cincinnati. Our starting quarterback got hurt, and I got some playing time there. Shared reps with another kid, and I did okay. I had a couple good games. One game where I played really really well, and so then he graduated. The starter graduated, and so it was me and this other kid. We're supposed to kind of be, you know, battling it out in the spring for the starting job. And all I did was run the football, man. I had no pocket presence. Like I was a glorified running back playing quarterback. And because of that, that's just how I played ball. Growing up in high school, and I played backyard football. So they wanted me to be in the system, which I understood, right? Like, I mean, you can't just have a kid running out, getting a snap and just doing whatever the hell he wants. So, I mean, I got it now, but at the time, they tried to coach me and micro manage me so much in how I played. I got to a point where I was so uncomfortable. So going into that year, I'm sitting down with our offensive coordinator, and he gives all the quarterbacks like things they need to work on to win the starting job, right? And I'm not kidding you, man. Everybody's got like 5, 6 points. Mine was like 8 pages. And like I looked at that and I just, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I just went out there, like I helped us, get to the Big East title, whatever. Played a little bit, did okay. I was like, man, I can't do all this. And like I was in my own head at that point. Like I was wanting to please people, please my coaches and stuff. And I went to him, I was like, look, like if you guys want me to do this, like I can't do it. You might as well just put me at receiver or something. And it was basically like, all right, well, that's what we're gonna do. So they moved me to receiver, and I mean, you see receivers, right? Like Darnell, man, like you see Darnell out there running routes and stuff. Like I couldn't do that, but I thought I could. You know what I mean? It's because I could run around a little bit. So I got out there, and again, I just like really wasn't the right fit for me. And I like I said, like looking back on this now as a 32-year-old man, like I put myself in these positions. You know what I'm saying? Um, but then I'm playing receiver, and I'm 220 pounds. Almost 6'3". They got me at kind of like a slot, and just really, again, not really in the right spot. And so they moved me 2 weeks before camp to linebacker. Hadn't played defense since I was in like sixth grade, so had no clue what the hell I was doing. And moved me to linebacker, and again, super uncomfortable. And at this point, like I was, I don't want to say I was defiant because I was still a good teammate and things like that. Um, but I was yes sir, no sir up until that point, and then I kind of started to speak my mind a little bit. And they asked me what I thought about playing linebacker, and I was like, to be honest with you, I hate this. Like, I've never done anything except for have the ball in my hands, and now you guys trying to get me to do the other side. Like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I was like, I feel stupid out there. Then I had a kind of a little bit of an altercation with my coach about it. Moved me back to receiver, and from there I didn't play. I didn't play. They tried me in some practice at running back. Didn't really work. Went back to receiver. And then, 2 games, I think I played that season going my junior, that's my redshirt junior year. Had a couple good games again. They threw me in just kind of like random spot duty running the Wildcat. And really that's where I was good at, right? Like I was a 6'3", 220-pound running back that couldn't pass block and do really anything except for run the football. But if it was snapped to me. So I just didn't really like, I didn't really have a position, you know what I mean? And then our new staff came in after that, my last year, and they put me at tight end and fullback because they see a kid who's almost 6'3", 225 pounds, playing slot receiver, and they wanted to run a little bit more of a pro style system. And so they moved me to tight end and fullback, and I did some decent things there, and then I tore my hamstring and came back super out of shape. I was 255 pounds going into fall camp my senior year and couldn't even get through practice. And was basically, they were like, yeah, you're not going to play. Like we got better players playing receiver and all of that, so we're probably going to do a little bit more 10 personnel, 11 personnel. And you're probably not going to play much this year. And so kind of learned to accept that. Um, you know, and then our starting quarterback, who was the kid 2 years prior, I had competed with and kind of split time with. he was our starter and he blew his knee out. And our other quarterback, who he was competing with for the job that year, he was pretty banged up too. And we did a lot of quarterback run stuff. So, like I said, I kind of been kind of a turd. This is about 4 weeks into the season, and Coach Tuberville called me into his office and was like, "Hey, Jordan, we're going to put in a package for you. We're going to move you back to quarterback." And I was like, "Yeah, I get it. Like, you're going to put me back there for depth, like just in case I played in some games and whatever, just in case like all hell breaks loose and you need somebody to be able to take a snap." And he was like, "No, like we're going to play you." I was like, "Okay, heard that before." And so they moved me back to quarterback, and then the last, four, I don't know, 5, 6 weeks of the season, I had a pretty big part of what we were doing. Was one of our second or third leading rusher, just basically running the wildcat. I was kind of a glorified fullback, basically, and that's kind of how I finished. So I went from quarterback to receiver to linebacker to running back to receiver to tight end and fullback back to quarterback. So it was wild, man. It was a year and a half of just like uncertainty and being unsure of myself and things like that. But like I said, it all ended up well. I was able to put like a nice little exclamation point to it for myself, and feel like I actually contributed to our team and was a valuable member of it. And like I said, it helped me learn a lot of lessons along the way that have applied to me just in my personal life and business. So no regrets on any of that. But it was a wild ride, man. I tell a lot of people like just that alone, and they're like, "There's no way," but
Yeah.
it was. So it was fine.
So you say you learned a lot in life and in business. So let's talk about the business. X3 performance and physical therapy. Tell me about that, man. Tell me about like how you got into it after your playing career ended, and just like you know the story leading up to now. So how did you build it? Where did the idea come from? Just everything X3, man. Just
Yeah,
we've had this conversation before, but I just
lay
want
it
you to
out
share it with the audience, man.
for sure. So, I kind of knew I wanted to do something with sports performance right out of the gate. When I was 18, I went to my undergrad for entrepreneurship because I thought I wanted to be more on the business side, which I kind of am now. But um, I wanted to build a sports performance business. And I had this, grand idea. I went through my undergrad. I got my undergrad in entrepreneurship, and that was my capstone project, was putting together, a business plan for a sports performance facility. And it was, when I'm putting it all together, it's pretty daunting, right? Because you think of all the overhead of racks and flooring and all that stuff, and all of a sudden you start stacking all that up, and you're like, dang, this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Like this is what business is actually like. And, the overhead of just keeping the lights on in the facility, keeping the facility open for a day, and all those things. And so I was like, well, maybe this isn't the route that I'm going to take right off the bat. And so during all those position changes and stuff, for whatever reason in my head, what I always heard was you're not good enough, Jordan. Like that was kind of what I processed in my head, right? Whether that was what I was being told or not, it was a physical thing. And so I started getting into lifting weights. When I was in high school, I mean, I would go and hang out in the bathroom when we were squatting so that I didn't have to squat. Like had wanted nothing to do with lifting when I was in high school. But that was kind of what I saw as my release or my path to playing, right? Um, and so I just started to get into it. And as I started to get into that and kind of, do more and more on my own, I started to want to learn more about it and stuff. And that kind of led me to like the strength and conditioning track, right? And wanting to be a strength coach. And so as I'm putting that capstone project together and I'm trying to figure out myself on the football field, I start to kind of shift my ideas of like, okay, well, I want to go be a strength coach. And so I started going down that path, right? I interned at a local place in Cincinnati while I was there, worked with a high school. I interned in the weight room while I was playing for almost a year. And so I did a bunch of that kind of stuff just to gain as much experience as possible. And then I got really, really fortunate right after my last season. I got a paid position with the Washington Redskins, paid internship with the Washington Redskins, where I was a part of their strength and conditioning staff. And just got really lucky. My boss, Ray Wright, and Chad Englehart, I think they saw that I was passionate, fiery dude who wanted to learn about the profession and was kind of willing to do anything and everything because I did, whether it was going to pick somebody up, a can of dip in between, practice and meetings or whatever. Like I was willing to do anything. And, and so I had that experience. And then I just kind of, went from there. Me and my wife decided, girlfriend at the time, fiance at the time, but we decided we wanted to kind of find a place to settle down, right? Like I've been in that rat race of the same schedule and routine for years, and I just kind of burned out of it a little bit. So her and I decided to move to Nashville, and we settled there. Got a job as a strength and conditioning coach at a private school there, and did that for a couple of years. And then Shelby got pregnant with our oldest son Maverick, and it was kind of like right then and there, it like hit me in the face. It was like, look, like this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I got to provide for my family, right? And there was nothing wrong with working at the high school, but I wanted to be able to financially provide us a quality life. You know what I mean? And we were starting the world of having children, and I, yeah, my wife wanted to work at the time and things, but I wanted to give her the flexibility and the option to do that. And I knew with what I was doing, there was really no way for me to do it. So, I sat down, I talked to my dad, and I talked to my mom and talked to Shelby, and I said, hey, like, I'm gonna put this business plan together that I did in college, and be a little bit more, um, smarter about it, right? Like have a little bit more strategy to it, and I'm gonna go try to make this thing happen. And so basically, what I did is I took my business plan, shaped it, morphed it a little bit, and tried to go to local sports medicine providers and different people like that to try to find a partner, right? And say, hey, I'm betting on myself, but I want you to help me get this thing going. And I pretty much got laughed out of the room by everybody that I talked to. I was told it would never work, that sports performance is not a successful business model, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I actually reached out to a group from Cincinnati, private group from Cincinnati, for advice. And they were like, "Hey, well, why don't you start a location for us in Nashville?" I was like, "Great." So I did it. And it was kind of like, "Hey, I'm going to roll out the ball. You make the rules and you play." You know what I mean? And it was like, "Okay, well, I don't know the rules, and I don't know how to play." You know what I mean? But so basically, I just
Right.
started trying to figure it out and build it from scratch. And I did that for a year with those guys,
Now,
and
what was this group's name?
it was called Ignition.
Ignition. Okay, I
Yeah,
remember that because it was I was probably going into my senior year,
yeah, and
and it was
Nephi and
it
E-Man and all those guys. Yeah,
yeah, everybody was training with you at Ignition at the time. It was Ignition, uh, and it was at Lipscomb, correct?
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, so I was
Yeah.
over at Lipscomb, over to high school, and did it that first year, and really kind of started to kind of find my niche, right, in this profession, and how to, find success, from the business perspective, but also from a personal level. And so, it just, the, the organization of it for me down here just didn't, or in Nashville just didn't really work, working with them. So, we parted ways, and found Boost in Nashville, and went to Boost. I was there for 4 years, and they had an unbelievable facility, but just was sports performance was kind of the missing link. And so I was able to go in there and really, that was really where I was able to spread my wings and kind of be given a little bit of direction as far as like, hey, like this is kind of like the confines you're going to work within, but like go do your thing. And I was given a lot of freedom in that, and I was able to. And we did a lot of cool things. Your first draft class, obviously, we had a really, really big class. It was a good group. Bunch of guys from that group still playing in the league. You, Alec Ingold, Shy Tuttle, John Harris, Drew Forbes. There's a bunch of guys, Zach Bailey, that are still playing in the league. So, but that allowed me to then kind of take my business mind, like the business hat that I had developed going through business school, and really put it to use, right? And the thing that I found there, that allowed me to find, you know, business success, was thinking outside of the box. You look at sports performance models across the country, and so many of them are identical to one another, right? We've got a youth performance class, we've got pro training, combine training, we've got adult boot camps, whatever, right? And all those things are good if you have the right culture and you have the right people to lead them and passionately build them and market them. But it also allowed me to kind of think outside the box and do some different things, and like one in particular, Tennessee State was going through a time where, they were transitioning strength coaches at a rapid rate. I had a good relationship there, and Kevin Mashak, who's at Texas A&M now, but he called me and was like, "Hey, you want to be a strength coach?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I don't really want to be the strength coach at Tennessee State. I want to continue to do what I'm doing, but we can set something up like an outsource model, right? Because I would love to be over there and help you guys and help, give stability to the school." And he was like, "Well, outside my pay grade, right? Like, talk to our athletic director." So we set up the meeting, or tried to, and it was tough to get in contact with her. So one day I went and sat outside of her office and waited for her, and was able to grab her attention for a few minutes, which led to a meeting with me in front of every single head coach at Tennessee State, where I presented, our outsourcing model. Ultimately, they ended up, saying, "Let's do it." And I was able to put together an entire staff at TSU on my own. So it was one of the, I mean, I don't know, there might have been others, but as far as I know, it was the only Division I school with a fully outsourced strength staff, in the country. Um, and so that's what I'm talking about, like doing different things, like thinking outside the box. And it allowed us to do it. It wasn't like it was a super profitable venture for us, right? But it was a unique one that gave us some validation as far as the product and the coaching staff that we had and things like that, right? And we were able to do some good things. I ended up working with the basketball team and created some incredible relationships there with players and coaches that I still talk to on a regular basis and am really close with. We had a really great season, one of the best seasons that TSU's had in a long time. From a basketball perspective, we won 19 games that year, and that was right before COVID. I think we would have had a 20-win season if the season hadn't got shut down when we were going into the postseason. And it allowed us to do, like I said, some really cool stuff there. And so, but we got to a point where, we were in Nashville. My wife and I had some personal things that we were going through, family things that we were going through, where a fresh start was kind of needed. But I was on a path where I was doing all of this stuff, right? And it was growing at a quality rate. And I wanted to be able to do it at a higher level, right? Like I said, like there were confines within which I had to work at and boost. Not saying that in a negative light at all, but there were confines within which I had to work there that really kind of just limited overall growth. But it wasn't like the primary business model. You know what I mean? Like there were a lot of other things that took place there and that, allowed them to see quality revenue. So it's not like there was animosity with that. I could completely understood it, but I knew I could do more. And so I got connected with who are now my business partners and the investors of X3. It was actually a guy that my dad was a partner with, whose best friend owned a physical therapy company that was extremely successful. And I quickly noticed that when I started working with pro athletes and doing combine training, like that was the missing link. But not just providing physical therapy, but being able to link and integrate performance and physical therapy into one product, right? And so I met Joe. His name is Joe Isaac and Nick Walker, and I met those guys. Like I said, my dad and Nick were business partners at a group called PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Nick and Joe are business partners for Tri-State Rehab. He's got 8 locations, I'm pretty sure, in Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. Super successful, and he wanted to do something bigger too. And so we got connected, and it was like, hey, like there's a lot of synergy here. Let's put this business model together, right? And so we started crafting the business model, crafting the profit and loss, the 5-year projection, 3-year projection, all those type of things. Like, what do we want this model to look like? And for us, what it came out to was performance and physical therapy and integrating those, right? Across the board, though, not just with professional athletes, with your weekend warriors, with your everyday, just people that want to stay in shape, getting somebody that comes to us through Medicare or Medicaid for physical therapy and being able to transition them into training to be able to maintain a quality, healthy life after after they're discharged from physical therapy. It was really kind of a universal idea. Um, and so we put the model together. And like I said, my wife and I were going through some things personally. Um, and we made a decision that we wanted to move. We wanted to leave Nashville for the health of our family, and so we did that. And then I told John and the guys at Boost, so I'm going through. I got two sides of things. I'm going through continuing to work at Boost, and you know we're developing this business model and stuff of potentially working together. But obviously, there were potential restrictions or roadblocks on that, right? Overall, at the end of the day, my family and our personal health and well-being superseded all of that. Like I was willing to give up all of that to do what was right for my family and for my kids. And so I went and I told them, hey, look, like I'm moving. I'm leaving Nashville. I'm gonna go do my own thing. Um, we're moving down to Florida. My mom has a place down here. My father-in-law comes down here as a snowbird, and so we were like, we're going to get out of here and we're just going to go start our own family route somewhere else. And they were supportive of that. They understood. They knew the background of everything, and they had some conversations as well with my business partners and the investors of X3. And they said, basically kind of said, hey, why don't you reach out to them about helping you do it? And I was like, with your blessing, yeah, absolutely. And because I didn't want to do anything sideways. You know what I'm saying? So we did, and like I said, they said, well, basically, how confident are you in this business model in Fort Myers, Florida? I said, look, I'm extremely confident. I'll do a market analysis for you guys to show it. But this is one of the fastest growing areas in the state of Florida. Um, it's a large city, and there is no private sector training in this entire area. It's almost like it was caught like in 2000, right? And there was just nothing going on down here, but there's a lot of athletes, there's a lot of kids to be able to service. Obviously, from a physical therapy standpoint as well, it's a retirement destination, so you've got a lot of older people as well that fit into our business model. So the business model that we were shaping together, like I said, I did the market analysis. I rebuilt it to be based on Fort Myers and Southwest Florida, and it made sense, And I knew that for combine training, um, I would be able to be more successful down here because it's a more marketable climate during January and February, and that proved to be 100% true with our group this past year. Easily my most successful year that I've ever had. Just as far as um, you know guys making it to the NFL and things like that. We got 25 guys on 53-man rosters from our training class this past year. Um, but that came to fruition. But basically that's what it was. It was being able to put everything on paper and show and articulate. That was a big problem of all of it. The biggest thing was being able to articulate each step of it, and that I had a plan, that there was a plan in it, right? And um, and being able to then tell that story, right? Like, look, this is what I've done in Nashville. This is what I know can carry over down here. Yeah, we're going to have to build this part, but it's going to take the right pieces, right? So it was, okay, this is our, executive team. These are the people that are going to help us to get it done. These are the traits that I'm looking for in these people to make sure that we can get it done. I know personally, I'm not going to be great about developing a youth performance, you know, program. I'm not, on the weekends, I'm going to be spend time with my kids. So I'm not going to be going out to, a high school football game or whatever. Like I value that family time. So like I knew some of the things that you need to do to really be successful in that. I wasn't going to be able to do it. So it was finding the right person to do that. Right. From a general population personal training standpoint, I don't have a clue what it takes to be a successful personal trainer, and to really market to general population. So I needed somebody like that could do that. Right. We needed a really quality clinician on the physical therapy side. And so we had to identify somebody who could, work with an 80-year-old mom, but also work with, you. And so it was kind of putting all of those different pieces together and articulating that on paper so that, you could tell the story without having to sit there and act like you're, full of crap, basically. And then putting the numbers on paper so that it made sense, so that these investors who are putting their own personal, money that they've made over their careers on the line and saying, okay, like I can see my return, right? It may not be year one or year two, but I can see my return on year three, year four, year five. And I can see where if this is a business model that 20 years from now, everybody says, hey, like we've had a great time, let's sell it. It's actually sellable. You know what I mean? And we're not just sitting here and we're holding on to it because we have to. And then the value of it diminishes, the product diminishes because the people that were there on the front end were not able to replicate or whatever. So it was being able to articulate all of that story on paper so that they could see everything that was
Yeah.
going on in my head, if that makes sense. And then all of that came to fruition, like I said, and we've been down here for about a year now, and it's been super, super successful. That business plan that we developed has changed and pivoted 25 times. It looks nothing like it did, but the foundation, the
Yeah.
framework of it is there, and that's the framework of it is what's allowed us to be successful, and so, yeah, I guess kind of a long-winded way to describe how we got here, but I think the story and the articulation of the different steps that it took to get here, um, is important because it wasn't a quick turnaround. It's not something that just happened overnight because I was like, oh well, I got a good mouthpiece. I can tell this story, and it's a lot of it's BS. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of um, you know just uncertainty, but it was also being resourceful and in times of desperation a little bit. You remember when during COVID we had 15 guys lifting in my garage on an Olympic squat rack, and so things like that helped the business to grow and see where it is now, right? And now it's like, okay, all of these steps took to get to step one, right? And now we're just trying to get to step two. So yeah, that's kind of how X3 came to be. Um, I guess in a long-winded way.
No, man, I appreciate it. This is the perfect place to be long winded. And as you were talking, I was really like just drawing parallels between building the business and like your football career. And I think it just makes a lot of sense that you're successful in this because, like you said, you reiterated the business plan 27 times. Well, and you have experience reiterating, choosing a new position, trying to, you know what I'm saying? Like it all.
Yep.
I feel like a lot of times when I talk to guys, excuse me, about the things that they do on and off the field, there's always a lot of crossover. Like a lot of the same principles are the same. Like
Yeah.
for example, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about professionals and professional athletes. And in my mind, college athletes are professional athletes, just based on the amount of time that they put in. But like
Yeah.
they were saying that professionals will prepare 10 times, almost 100 times in time. They'll prepare 100 times more than they perform, right? So just everything that you were saying about putting your business plan together and how much you prepared that and how much work you really put into that so that you weren't just giving somebody some BS. Like,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense how you were able to build this and choose your team. So let's talk about the team real quick. You got Coop in Nashville and Storm. How do you choose people to work with? Like what's your process for choosing people? Is it just a gut thing when you talk to them, or how does that go down?
For me, I could sit here and talk to you for 10 hours about like everything, the path and everything and the bumps in the road in between each stop and all that stuff. But for me, it was about people that I trusted, first and foremost, so like if you look at our nucleus of our team, both down here and up there, at the end of the day, like it comes down to people that I've known and trusted, but who also do an excellent job of their work. So when we decided to do this, and really like went forward. The first person that we reached out to on the physical therapy side was a guy named Drew Keel, and I'm sure you've probably interacted with Drew some up there on the PT side. But I've known Drew since I was man. I've known him and his brothers since I was 11 years old. We grew up playing. I grew up playing AAU basketball against his brother Dusty. Um, Dusty and I are the same age. We, both played quarterback, went to every camp together growing up and things like that. Drew was the older brother. And when I moved here, I played with their youngest brother, Gunner, at Cincinnati. When I moved to Nashville, ran into him at Gold's Gym and, became really close with those guys. Um, and so I trusted Drew and I know he's a great clinician. And it was like, well, we reached out to Drew. Hey, Drew, do you want to do this? He was like, I'm not really, like, yes, but no, I've got good stuff going on right now and I'm going to stick with that, but I want to be a part of it. And so we trusted him and he knew Storm and spoke highly of Storm. And then Storm and Joe connected and Joe was like, yeah, we're going to hire Storm. So that's how we got Storm from the physical therapy side, right? It started with trust with somebody who I was really close with. Obviously, Coop, I was my right hand man, in Nashville through. That's right. Shout
Shout
out
out
to
to
Coop.
Coop, man.
Through everything up there. You know what I mean? Like, if there was one guy that I could trust with my life that I've been in this profession with, it's Coop. He's one of the most loyal, honest, trustworthy guys, and he's a phenomenal coach. So originally it was to try to have Coop come down here with me. And that was kind of the original plan. And, they got family deeply rooted in Nashville and stuff. And so they made a family decision. They wanted to stay there when we had the ability to have two locations. And so, you know, we kept Coop on, kept him up there. So then for me, having somebody down here, with my team down here, it was okay. Well, I need to find somebody that I can trust deeply, like Coop. Um, and I grew up playing with a guy named Lawrence Barnett, who owned a facility in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Jalen Smith, Jesse Bates, Ben Skoranek, a bunch of guys like Fort Wayne's a little old town up northeast Indiana, and all these guys came out of LB's facility. Call him LB. They all came out of LB's facility that he was an owner of. And he had been working with those guys since they were 12, 13, 14 years old. And but yeah, so I had been seeing what he was doing up there and following him. Obviously, we followed each other on social media and stuff, and we grew up playing AU basketball together. So like I said, I in this world in sports performance, man, it's wild how attached and like guys get to professional athletes or like clients and how it's probably like that in every profession to an extent, right? But it's like you see like a little bit of success or like somebody gives you like a compliment or tells you you're good or whatever, and all of a sudden people just like they go crazy, like they turn into something different and feel like this entitlement to a client or a contract or whatever it is. And there's no loyalty in this profession. And so that was what was most important for me. So I've known Lawrence since fifth grade. We played AU basketball together since fifth grade. And, when Coop decided he was going to stay in Nashville, I was like, all right, well, there's only one person I'm reaching out to. And it was him. And, he'd been, born and raised, lived in Fort Wayne all of his life. So it was kind of it was a process getting him on board, getting him down here. But the thing that, it's deeply rooted in was trust, right? He trusted me that I would, we would work together and he would be able to achieve some things that he wasn't able to achieve in Fort Wayne, Indiana, from a personal side. And that's what we did. And we just went to work, and so then for us from a physical therapy standpoint, we wanted a great clinician. So we talked to a handful, ultimately found a guy to be our director named Andrew, who rock solid dude, incredible clinician, graduated top of his class from one of the top physical therapy schools in America, all those things. But just from the moment you met him, you meet somebody and you can tell like they're a great person, they're a loyal person. And that was Andrew. And so it was a no brainer for us on that side too. And then the last piece, like I said, was the personal training side. And, we had a guy we had a posting out for personal trainers, and had a guy with incredible amount of experience, owned a gym in New Jersey that was extremely successful. Moved down here and had done a lot of really high level stuff in the general population market. Came to us and really just kind of wanted to work here. He thought it seemed like a cool concept. So he wanted to work here. And me and my partners, we looked at it on paper and were like, this guy's way overqualified to just train. And so we said, talk to him, negotiate with him, figured things out. Like, hey, we want you to be a part of this. And that was probably the only one that wasn't like, okay, this is a obvious, you know, like deeply rooted in trust. But he quickly proved that. He quickly proved that to us. And he's been incredible as far as the development and growth of our business. I mean, just to give you an idea of like what he's done for us, um, we've been in business now. This is not less than a year, and we're averaging, $30,000, $40,000 in personal training, with six coaches, personal training staff. And it's because of, off the back of his hard work. He's developed the processes and the oversight and the see through to make sure that that's happened. And that's happened that's a pretty short period of time to be able to develop that kind of a, you know, personal training, um, personal training market. And, but yeah, that's basically what it was, but it started with the foundation of this being like, I had to have somebody that I knew and trusted. Um, because I didn't want to look over my shoulder. I didn't want to, be peeking over my shoulder every day, wondering if that guy was in the foxhole with me. I didn't have to do that with Coop. I've never had to do that with Coop. Um, you know, but I sure as hell didn't want to do that coming down here, and trying to really see this dream, this vision that I've had, for my life through. I didn't want to be doing that down here. So, we got LB on board, and like I said, we've been rocking ever since. And, we work really, really well together, and it's rooted in trust. And that's, to me, the most important thing.
Where so how many people are on the X3 team as of right now?
About 20 between both locations, about seven up there, 13 down here.
So you run a 20 person team between Nashville and Fort Myers. Like I can only imagine the level of like how locked in you have to be able to maintain a sort of effectiveness, like even with all the processes in place, right? Like what are some of the things you do to stay locked in on business and to make sure you're on your P's and Q's at all times?
Um, Charge this thing about 10 times a day, I mean, I'm on it, unfortunately all day. Not unfortunately. I mean, it's what it takes, to support my family. And that's, I mean, I wake up, drink a lot of caffeine. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I pretty much get right to it. I start firing off emails, text messages, everything, like getting my day in order. The things that I know, especially if I'm going to have a busy day training, because that's still one of the places where, I'm relatively young. So that's still one of the places where I'm most effective for the development of our business is, what got me to this point. So, if I've got a busy day training, I'll try to, get all of my texts or my emails or whatever out of the way first thing in the morning. And then I'm very regimented with my schedule, of making sure that if I've got a FaceTime with a player to show them the facility for combine training, I've got that scheduled, so that if there is something else that I've got to do or that I need to add into my schedule on the fly, I don't do it and I have to go back and say, oh man, sorry, like I messed up or I missed this. I'm very regimented in that to make sure that I always approach this in a very professional manner. And so, with Nashville, we've got a business development leader up there for us, and I have a weekly call with him on Mondays at 8 a.m. and we talk for about an hour, and go over a lot of stuff. I have routine calls with the investors and, my partners, probably at least 3, 4 times a week to go over things between both locations, talk vision for future developments, and all those types of things. But first and foremost, the biggest thing is I try to look at this business from a 10,000 foot view and see where where we're going, right? And if I come up with a business idea or a business idea is presented to us, I try to see that 5 years down the line and what that's going to look like, or how to make sure that's going to be something for us 5 years down the line. So, like I said, it's constant communication and making sure that like my schedule is extremely regimented and organized so that I don't miss anything. Because that's what I pride myself the most on is my availability and accessibility to make sure that if someone needs to talk to me or there is an opportunity for us, I don't allow us to miss it. Um, but I will say, with that being said, from the moment that I go home, occasionally it doesn't work this way, but from the moment that I get home and I close my car door until my kids go to sleep, it is family time. I'm going to make dinner. I'm going to play with my kids. I'm going to give them a bath. I'm going to put them to sleep. I'm going to do all of that stuff. Like right now is a busy time for combine training and, Zoom calls and FaceTimes and things like that. And I get guys, people asking me to do Zoom calls. Hey, can you do 6 p.m.? And, I'll say no. I'll do it at 9 when my kids go, when I know my kids are in bed. And I think you know this about me too, and outside of you know, certain things, I don't work on the weekends. I'll reserve that for my family. And I've turned down an enormous amount of business because I refuse to come in on a Saturday or Sunday. But at the end of the day, like I said, this decision was made to be here, to be in Fort Myers, for all of this to be here was based on family, and that's always going to be my number one priority. So I think
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
long-winded way to say, yeah, I do all of this stuff and I keep myself in order and allow us to grow, whatever, but I keep the main thing every single day. And from the moment I wake up, it's about family. Till the moment I go to bed, it's about family. That's my priority number one. If my wife needs me or my kids need me to go pick them up from school, it doesn't matter who's in this building. I'm going to drop it and I'm going to leave because that's my number one priority. And I think that by keeping everything in order, one, that's allowed me to stay grounded on a personal level. Because again, a lot of people in this industry tend to think very highly of themselves. I don't fall into that trap. I worry about my wife, I worry about my kids, I worry about my family and taking care of them the best way that I can. And then this is 1B. That's my 1A, and 1A is always going to supersede 1B. So, um, yeah, man, that's kind of how I go about it and making sure that, this continues to grow. But I think that God honors that because like I said, I keep the main thing.
Absolutely, man. I think that's a really strong place to end right there, man. Like you said, keeping the main thing, keeping the focus on family and turning down deals to be with the family. Like all money ain't good money if it comes in front of something else that's really important. You know what I mean?
That's
So
right.
so I really appreciate that point, man. I really appreciate that point. I think that's a really strong place to end right here. I know you got to get to the rest of your day. So man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the gems. There's a lot of gems in there about about running and managing a business, about taking a business from point A to point B, from an idea and then planning that business. So I hope when the audience watches this, they see all of that value that you brought, man. Any last words for the audience? Anything you want to say to them, and then tell them where they can find X3 on all socials.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really think I got anything else to say. I think that, like I said, that, I kind of touched on the biggest point of all of it there at the end, right? And that's where, like, I think that's the most important thing is like not allowing yourself to lose yourself in the process, right? Like success is only going to be how you define it. And my definition of success lies with making sure my family's good first and foremost, right? Like all of this is relative compared to that. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then social media. I mean, you know this. I'm not a huge social media guy, but we do have, Instagram X3 Perform. We've also got our Nashville page, which is X3 Nashville. So mostly on that. We got Twitter, but we don't really use it. But X3 Perform. That's where you're gonna find us on IG. So that's where most of our content's at.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate it, man, and congratulations on everything that you've built, dog. I'm glad to have been a part of it and you know, get some of that value that you bring and help me to get where I'm at, man. And then shout out
You
to
helped
Coop
build it,
down in
dude.
Nashville,
That's
train with
right.
Coop. Yeah, trash. Hey man, shout out to Coop, man. He helped me this past off season. I still got to get down there to Florida to rock out with you in the new building, man. I'm coming, so don't think I'm not coming down there, because I am. So
That's right. Bring the wife and baby,
man,
man.
I appreciate your time. Yeah, we
likewise.
bringing the whole game. So
There you go.
I appreciate
There
your
you go.
time, bro. I appreciate your
Likewise,
time,
man.
and I appreciate you doing this interview with me, bro.
Thanks for having me on, man.
No doubt. See you next time, bro. Peace.